וירח בלילה, השם ישמורך מכל רע, ישמור את נפשך, השם ישמור צאתך ובואך, מעתה ועד עולם. הנה לא ינום ולא ישן שומר ישראל, השם שומרך, השם צילך על יד ימינך, יומם השמש לא יככה וירח בלילה, השם ישמורך מכל רע, ישמור את נפשך, השם ישמור צאתך ובואך, מעתה ועד עולם. אוי אוי מקימי מעפר דל, מהשפות ירים אביון, אוי להושיבי עם נדיבי עמו, תגנאי נאי 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 תנאי נאי נאי תנאי נאי 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 נאי. כי השם אלוקינו המקביל לשבת, אוי בשמיים ובארץ, אוי מקימי מעפר דל, מהשפות ירים אביון, אוי להושיבי עם נדיבים, עם נדיבי עמו.
Okay, let's see, this is going. Shabbat Shalom, and welcome to the World Alliance of Qara'im. Torah study this week, and we are studying Parshat Achrei Mot. And let's see if I can set things up correctly here. Let's get rid of this. Let's do this. Share screen. Share, whoops. Share screen, window, Torah, and there we go. Okay. Hi, Ben and Ariella. Can you guys hear me? And you're unmuted, so I don't know what's going on. So maybe something on your side. I can't hear what you guys are saying at all. Alrighty, so here we are. We're going to do Parshat Achrei Mot. This is basically Leviticus chapter 16 through 18. And I'll start just by reading through it. I will try as best as I can. Read through it once without stopping, so we can at least say we got through the Parsha in my best biblical Hebrew that I can muster. And then we can go back and speak about it. So we are in Leviticus 16. I'll try to call out chapter and verse where possible every so often. And so we're starting actually with the laws of Yom Kippurim, which we'll see really deal with atonement for the tabernacle, not atonement for individuals. Really the central purpose of Yom Kippurim is to atone for any impurity that might have been inadvertently or purposely imparted upon the tabernacle. So here we go. We are in Leviticus 16. We're going from Leviticus 16:1 through 18:30. And let's do it. We're in now Leviticus 16, chapter 16, verse 1. וידבר יהוה אל משה אחרי מות שני בני אהרון בקרבתם לפני יהוה וימותו ויאמר יהוה אל משה דבר אל אהרון אחיך ואל יבוא בכל עת אל הקודש מבית לפרוכת אל פני הכפורת אשר על הארון ולא ימות כי בענן ראה על הכפורת. בזאת יבוא אהרון אל הקודש בפר בן בקר לחטאת ועיל לעולה. verse 4. כתונת בד חודש ילבש ומכנסי בד יהיו על בשרו והוא ואבנת בד יחגור ובמצנפת בד יסנוף בגדי קודש הם ורחץ במים את בשרו ולבשם. verse 5. מאת עדת בני ישראל ייקח שני שעירי עזים לחטאת ועיל אחד לעולה והקריב אהרון את פר החטאת אשר לו וכיפר בעדו ובעד ביתו ולקח את שני השעירים והעמיד אותם לפני יהוה פתח אוהל מועד. verse 8. ונתן אהרון על שני השעירים גורל אחד ליהוה וגורל אחד לעזאזל והקריב אהרון את השעיר אשר עלה עליו הגורל ליהוה ועשהו חטאת והשעיר אשר עלה עליו הגורל לעזאזל יעמוד חי לפני יהוה ולכפר עליו לשלח אותו לעזאזל המדבר. verse 11. והקריב אהרון את פר החטאת אשר לו וכיפר בעדו ובעד ביתו ושחט את פר החטאת אשר לו. verse 12. ולקח מלוא המחתה גחלי אש מעל המזבח מלפני יהוה ומלוא חפניו קטורת סמים תקע והביא מבית לפרוכת. verse 13. ונתן את הקטורת על האש לפני יהוה וכיסה ענן הקטורת את הכפורת אשר על העדות ולא ימות ולקח מדם הפר והיזה באצבעו על פני הכפורת קדמה לפני הכפורת יזה 7 פעמים מן הדם באצבעו. verse 15. ושחט את השעיר החטאת אשר לעם והביא את דמו כאשר עשה לדם הפר והיזה אותו על הכפורת ולפני הכפורת. verse 16. וכיפר על הקודש מטומאתו בני ישראל ומפשעיהם לכל חטאתם וכן יעשה לאוהל מועד שוכן איתם בתוך טומאתם. וכל אדם לא יהיה באוהל מועד בבואו לכפר בקודש על צאתו וכיפר בעדו ובעד ביתו ובעד כל קהל ישראל. verse 18. ויצא אל המזבח אשר לפני יהוה וכיפר עליו ולקח מדם הפר ומדם השעיר ונתן על קרנות המזבח סביב. verse 19. והיזה עליו מן הדם באצבעו 7 פעמים וטהרו קידשות מטומאת בני ישראל. verse 20. וכילה מכפר את הקודש ואת אוהל מועד ואת המזבח והקריב את השעיר החי ושמח אהרון את שתי ידיו על ראש השעיר החי והתוודה עליו את כל עוונות בני ישראל ואת כל פשעיהם לכל חטאותם ונתן אותם על ראש השעיר ושילח ביד איש עתי המדברה ונשא השעיר עליו את כל עוונותם אל ארץ גזירה ושילח את השעיר במדבר. verse 23. ובא אהרון אל אוהל מועד ופשט את בגדי הבד אשר לבש בבואו אל הקודש והניחם שם ורחץ את בשרו במים במקום קודש הקדוש ולבש את בגדיו ויצא ועשה את עולתו ואת עולת העם וכיפר בעדו ובעד העם. verse 25. ואת חלב החטאת יקטיר המזבח והמשלח את השעיר לעזאזל יכבס בגדיו ורחץ את בשרו במים ואחרי כן יבוא אל המחנה ואת פר החטאת ואת שעיר החטאת אשר הובא את דמם לכפר בקודש יוציא אל מחוץ למחנה ושרפו באש את אורתם ואת בשרם ואת פרשם והשורף אותם יכבס בגדיו ורחץ את בשרו במים ואחרי כן יבוא אל המחנה. Okay, verse 29, Leviticus 16, verse 29. והייתה לכם חוקת עולם בחודש השביעי, בעשור לחודש תענו את נפשותיכם בכל מלאכה לא תעשו, האזרח והגר הגר בתוככם, כי ביום הזה יכפר עליכם לטהר אתכם מכל חטאותיכם לפני יהוה תטהרו. שבתון היא לכם ועיניתם את נפשותיכם חוקת עולם. וכיפר הכהן אשר ימשך אותו ואשר ימלא את ידו לכהן תחת אביו ולבש את בגדי הבד בגדי הקודש. verse 33. וכיפר את מקדש קודש ואת אוהל מועד ואת המזבח יכפר ועל הכהנים ועל כל עם הקהל יכפר. והייתה זאת לכם לחוקת עולם לכפר על בני ישראל מכל חטאותם אחת בשונה ויעש כאשר ציווה יהוה את משה. So that is Leviticus 16. Now we will go on to Leviticus 17. Oops, I don't know what's going on there, but okay. Leviticus 17. וידבר יהוה אל משה לאמור, דבר אל אהרון ואל בניו ואל כל בני ישראל ואמרת עליהם, זה הדבר אשר ציווה יהוה לאמור. verse 3. איש מבית ישראל אשר ישחט שור או כסף או עז במחנה או אשר ישחט מחוץ למחנה ואל פתח אוהל מועד לא הביאו להקריב קורבן ליהוה לפני משכן יהוה, דם יחשב לאיש ההוא, דם שפך ונכרת האיש ההוא מקרב עמו. למען אשר יביאו בני ישראל את זבחיהם אשר הם זוכרים על פני השדה והביאום ליהוה אל פתח אוהל מועד אל הכהן וזבחו זבחי שלמים ליהוה אותם. verse 6. וזרק הכהן את הדם על מזבח יהוה פתח אוהל מועד והתיר החלב לריח ניחוח ליהוה. verse 7. ולא יזבחו עוד את זבחיהם שעירים אשר הם זונים אחריהם חוקת עולם תהיה זאת להם לדורותם. verse 8. ועליהם תאמר איש איש מבית ישראל ומן הגר אשר יגור בתוכם אשר יעלה עולה או זבח ואל פתח אוהל מועד לא יביאנו לעשות אותו ליהווה ונכרת האיש ההוא מעמאו. verse 10, we're in Leviticus chapter 17 verse 10. והאיש איש מבית ישראל ומן הגר הגר בתוכם אשר יאכל כל דם ונתתי פניי בנפש האוכלת את הדם והכרעתי אותה מקרב עמה כי נפש הבשר בדם היא ואני נתתיו לכם על המזבח לכפר על נפשותיכם כי אדם הוא בנפש יכפר. 12. על כן אמרתי לבני ישראל כל נפש מכם לא תאכל דם והגר הגר בתוככם לא יאכל דם. verse 13. והאיש איש מבני ישראל ומן הגר הגר בתוכם אשר יצור ציד חיה או עוף אשר יאכל ושפך את דמו וכיסהו באפר. verse 14. כי נפש כל בשר דמו בנפשו הוא ואומר לבני ישראל דם כל בשר לא תאכלו כי נפש כל בשר דמו היא כל אוכליו יכרת. verse 15. וכל נפש אשר תאכל נבלה וטרפה בעזרה ובגר וכיבס בידיו ורחץ במים וטמא עד הערב וטהר ואם לא יכבס בשרו לא ירחץ ונשא עוונו. Okay, now we are up to chapter 18. וידבר יחווה אל משה לאמור דבר אל בני ישראל ואמרת עליהם אני יחווה אלוהיכם כי מעשה ארץ המצרים אשר ישבתם בה לא תעשו כי מעשה ארץ כנען אשר אני מביא אתכם שמה לא תעשו ובחוקותיהם לא תלכו את משפטיי תעשו ואת חוקותיי תשמרו ללכת בהם אני יחווה אלוהיכם. verse 5. שמעתם את חוקותיי ואת משפטיי אשר יעשה אותם האדם וחי בהם אני יחווה. verse 6. איש איש את כל שאר בשרו לא תקריב לגלות ערוות אני יחווה ערוות אביך וערוות אמך לא תגלה אמך היא לא תגלה ערוותה. verse 8. ערוות אשת אביך לא תגלה ערוות אביך היא ערוות. verse 9. ערוות אחותך בת אביך או בת אמך מולדת בית או מולדת חוץ לא תגלה ערוותן. verse 10. ערוות בת בנך או בת בתך לא תגלה ערוותן כי ערוותך הנה. verse 11. ערוות בת אשת אביך מולדת אביך אחותך היא לא תגלה ערוותה. verse 12. ערוות אחות אביך לא תגלה שאר אביך היא. verse 13. ערוות אחותך אחות אמך לא תגלה כי שאר אמך היא. ערוות אחי אביך לא תגלה אל אשתו לא תקריב דודך היא. verse 15. ערוות כלותך לא תגלה אשת בנך היא לא תגלה ערוותה. ערוות אשת אחיך לא תגלה ערוות אחיך היא. ערוות אישה וביתה לא תגלה את בת בינה ואת בת ביתה לא תיקח לגלות ערוותה. שעורה הנה זימה היא ואישה אל אחותה לא תיקח לצרור לגלות ערוותה עליה בחייה. verse 19. ואל אישה בנידת תיומתה לא תקריב לגלות ערוותה ואל אשת עמיתך לא תיתן שכבתך לזרע לטמאה בה מזרעך לא תיתן להעביר למולך ולא תחלל את שם אלוהיך אני יחווה. את זכר לא תשכב משכבי אישה תועבה היא ובכל בהמה לא תיתן שכבתך לטמאה בה ואישה לא תעמוד לפני בהמה לרבעה תבל הוא, verse 24. אל תטמעו בכל אלה, כי בכל אלה נטמעו הגויים אשר אני משלח מפניכם, ותטמע הארץ ואפקוד עוונו עליה, ותקיא הארץ את יושביה. verse 26. ושמרתם אתם את חוקותיי ואת משפטיי, ולא תעשו מכל תועבות האלה האזרח והגר הגר בתוככם, כי את כל התועבות האל עשו אנשי הארץ אשר לפניכם, ותטמע הארץ ולא תקיא הארץ אתכם לטמאכם אותה כאשר קאה את הגוי אשר לפניכם. verse 29. כי כל אשר יעשה מכל התועבות האלה ונכרתו הנפשות העושות מקרב עמם. verse 30. ושמעתם את משמרתי לבלתי עשות מחוקות התועבות אשר נעשו לפניכם ולא תטמעו בהם, אני יהוה אלוהיכם. Okay, so there we go. That is this week's Parsha. So we're not going to do a very long study, maybe another hour or so. So let's see what we can do here. Well, we have Yom Kippurim. Let's talk about this a little bit. And we'll try to go through. And I see Ariel and Ben are back, but I still don't hear them. Just letting you guys know, I don't hear you, but okay. So let's go through here. We can go through Leviticus 16 to start with. Wa'idaber, so we're in Leviticus 16:1. Wa'idaber Yahweh el Moshe Achrei Mot shnei bnei Aaron b'kirvatam lifnei Yahweh ve'yamutu. Right. So we're talking about here. What do I say? It's not Dotan and Aviram. It's whatchamacall? So Leviticus 12. No, it's before this. Nadav and Avihu, thank you very much. Okay, that's what it is. I always get Dotan and Aviram. That's what the Korach story mixed up with Nadav and Avihu. So we know that in Leviticus 10, right, Nadav and Avihu, the two eldest sons of Aharon, right, brought an unlicensed fire. They brought incense that was not licensed. And so let's just look at this for 1 second. One second. Yeah. Okay. Anyway, so so they brought unlicensed fire and they were put to death. Okay. So that was back in Leviticus chapter 10. And then Leviticus goes off and talks about all kinds of other things, such as kashrut, what we would call kashrut today, purification after childbirth. Then it goes on to a whole number of chapters regarding leprosy, right? And then just uncleanliness or impurity in general, different ways that men and women can impart impurity. Now we get to the law of atonement, okay? So now we're hearkening back to the story of Nadav and Avihu, and so now we're going to see what the right way is to approach the tabernacle. Okay, so we are in verse 2. Wayomer Yahweh el Moshe daber el Aharon achicha wa'al yavo bechol eit el hakodesh mibeit la parochet. So el pinei hakaporet asher al ha'aron ulo yamut ki be'anan era'e al hakaporet. So Right. So what this is saying is, so God spoke to Moshe and Yomer Yahweh el Moshe daber el Aaron, speak to Aaron achicha. Okay, so this is being directed towards Aaron. Aliva b'chol eit el hakodesh mibeit la parochet. So mibeit means within the parochet. Okay, el pnei kaporet. So we're talking about the inner sanctum of the tabernacle, right? So there's the holy place and there's the holy of holies. Okay, so let's see if we can get a nice image or a nice schematic of the tabernacle. Hopefully this will do. Okay, so this is when they talk about the veil, okay? When they talk about here, the parochet is this veil or this curtain, right? So mibet means inside, right? Mibet from the word ba'et, which means house. So like going into the house of the veil, all right? So we're talking about this holy of holy areas here, okay? So this is usually called the Kodesh, and this is called the Kadosh Kadoshim, the Holy of Holies. And inside here we have the Ark of the Covenant, okay? And what this is saying is that Aaron shouldn't just go there at any time. There's a certain procedure for approaching that, okay? And he should not come to the kaporet. The kaporet is the cover of the ark, okay? Shel al Haron. Sometimes it's translated as the mercy seat, because it might be related to the word lechaper, atonement, seat of atonement, but we're just going to call it the cover of the ark. Asher al Haron velo yamut ki be'anan el hakaporet. Okay, so there are two words here that we shouldn't get mixed up. One is parochet. Parochet is this veil, and kaporet is the cover of the ark, and they both sound approximately the same, but they're two completely different words. Okay, so parochet. Let's see if there's an underlying root here. So they're related to, I think this is an Akkadian word, paraku, which means to cut off or to shut off. Okay. See, Hebrew perech. That's interesting. So we related to the word here, the Strong's, or at least relates to the word parech. As in Exodus 1:13, Bnei Yisrael b'parech, this is speaking about how the Egyptians worked the Israelites rigorously, is a translation here. They're working hard. Parech, and so somehow it's connecting the word parochet with the word parech. I don't really see the connection now, but let's just leave that at this point. I don't want to start chasing it down right now. But that's the veil, okay, the parochet. And then we have the kaporet, that's from the ark cover, from the root kapar, chaf peresh, which means just to cover. Okay, and we've spoken about this before. I'm not going to speak about it again right now. So basically what this is saying is that Aaron should not go into the Holy of Holies area, into this area. Okay, so remember we have the holy area here, okay? And then we walk in and we have, so this direction. So we're facing the Ark of the Covenant from here, we're facing west, okay? This is east, this is north, and this is south. So when we walk into the holy area, we have the menorah on the south, we have the table on the north. We have the altar of incense right here in the center. And then if you continue walking west, then you pass the parochet, this veil, and then you go into the area of the Ark of the Covenant, right? Okay, so so the only thing that confuses me a little bit there is Yomer Yahweh el Moshe daber el Aaron achicha va'al yavo b'chol et el hakodesh mibeit laparochet. Okay, so it says here, and it should really say into the Holy of Holies, because that's the area we're talking about. Because from the context, it's clear we're talking about the Holy of Holies, right? But here it just says the Holy. So remember, this is the holy area, and this is the Holy of Holy areas. I'm wondering if any of the commentaries pick up on that, but I think it's just speaking in general into that general area, right? So you shouldn't walk into the holy area and then go inside the veil into the Holy of Holies, okay, where the Ark cover is, okay. And remember, the Ark covers is the place where basically God, shall we say, dwells. Okay, I hope I cannot have the cat running around. Okay, the cat has to be outside. It's not funny. All right, please take the cat outside. All right, thanks. All right, so Asher ala aretz velo yamut ki be'anan era'eh al hakaporet. Okay, can you please take the cat outside? All right, so let's just see if any of the commentaries pick up on that. So we're talking about Leviticus 16:2. And let's see what we got. So Leviticus 16:2. Right, so here Robert Alter picks right up on it, right? The sacred zone. In the present context, the meaning of a Kodesh, the holy, is clearly the Holy of Holies, where the Ark of the Covenant stands. Only on this most sacred day, which we'll get to in a second, that's Yom Kippurim, is the high priest granted access to this dangerous space, and only when he follows a strict regimen of dress and action, right? So this is exactly this is basically, Robert Alter is basically mimicking exactly what I just said, all right? That it says, it really should say Kodesh Kadoshim, the Holy of Holies. It just says Kodesh, the holy area, which is generally reserved for this area here, this kind of secondary outer area, shall we say, or first inner sanctum. Let's call this the inner sanctum, and this is the inner of inner sanctums, or something like that. So, but the context is clear, okay, that it's really speaking about the Kodesh Kodoshim, the Holy of Holies, okay? And this is an interesting point as well. The exact nature of this item. So we're talking here the kaporet. Remember, there's the parochet and the kaporet. So the parochet separates between the holy and the holy of holies, and the kaporet is the ark cover. And so Robert Alter says regarding the ark cover, the exact nature of this item, which we've spoken about many times before, I'm not going to speak about it again, is not entirely known, though it appears to have been some sort of carved lid to the ark. Whatever the actual etymology of the Hebrew term kaporet, this chapter surely exploits a punning connotation with kippur, atonement or purgation. So now we're going to be speaking about Yom Kippurim, and we have spoken about before the idea of the kaporet coming from the word lichpor or kapar, which just means to cover, but then also the PL form lichaper means to atone. So sometimes it's translated as the mercy seat or the seat of atonement. Sometimes it's just translated as the ark cover, okay? But it has this double meaning, or it could have this double meaning, and that's exactly what Robert Alter is pointing out here, because now we're going to be speaking about going into this cover on the Day of Atonement, on Yom HaKippurim, okay? So let's move ahead. And why is this key? So because in a cloud I am seen. I shall be seen upon the ark cover. Okay, so that's basically, it says in Exodus, I don't remember exactly what chapter, but it says that this God dwells between the cherubim, between the keruvim on the ark cover, right? So we have the ark cover. No, that is definitely not the ark cover. like it? So here's our, let's take this one. Indiana Jones. Okay, whatever. So here is a vision of the Ark cover. Indiana Jones wiki. Alrighty, it doesn't really matter. So here's our Ark cover, right? And we see that we have these two cherubim, these two kruvim, these two angels, and their faces are well. We spoke about this when we were learning the building of the tabernacle in Exodus. It says they face each other, but it also says they're looking down towards the ark, and so therefore most people think this means at a 45-degree angle, and then their wings stretch out and touch each other, and right between where the wings touch each other, that's where that is where God, so to speak, lives or dwells on this earth. Okay, so I don't want to go back over the ark and all the design and all its meaning. We did this when we studied the book of Exodus, but let's move ahead here. Okay, so we're going to go into now. Ariel and Ben are maybe back. So here we go. So we're going to go to verse 3. Bezot yavo Aaron el kodesh befar ben bakar lahatat wa'ayal le'olah. So now we're going to get instructions about how. So Aaron is. So remember, the background here is Nadav and Vihu. They died bringing this unlicensed fire. They decided, hey, we're gonna do our own thing. We're gonna show how much we love God, and we're gonna bring this incense. We're gonna make up we're gonna do our own thing. We're not going according to the rules. We're gonna bring something extra. And God put them to death because it went against God's very strict protocol, right, for behavior. For the sacrificial cult, so to speak, or behavior in and around the ark and the tabernacle, the tent of meeting, right? So, just a comment is that a lot of times I hear the comment, oh, how could God be so cruel and petty? I mean, all they did, they wanted to to bring extra incense to God, to show how much they were dedicated to Him and how much they loved Him, and He put them to death. I mean, isn't that petty? And the fact of the matter is, no. If you think about it, I mean, if God is the king, He's not just the king; He's the King of Kings, Malchei Melachim, right? He's the King of Kings, and this is His palace, this is His castle, right? And we know that in any kingdom, that there's a very specific protocol around how you approach the king, right? You can't just go prancing on in there and and say, hi, I'm here and I brought you a gift. No, there's a certain protocol. What if you just barged into the White House and started said, I have a gift here for President President Dumbbell, or President you know Alzheimer's. And then we see that in the book of Esther, that Esther was very worried about approaching the king without his permission, right? So there was a certain protocol. If you approach the king of Persia without permission, you'll be put to death unless he lifts up his scepter, right? So finally, under the finally Mordecai says, listen, you have to save our people. If you don't do it, someone else will do it. And then Esther decides, okay, I will, I'll take the chance to put my life at risk. And she enters against protocol to King Achashverosh, and Achashverosh, who loves her, raises up the scepter. Well, I guess that's part of the protocol, one could say, and admits her rather than putting her to death, right? So we see that anytime you have a king, a palace, a castle, that and a place where there's officials or government, or especially king and royalty, there's a certain protocol to be followed, and God also has even more so has his protocol to be followed, right? Shabbat shalom, everybody. Okay, so so that's that. So Nadav and Avihu, that's very nice of them that they want to bring an extra gift, but there's a certain protocol. And now this chapter is going to present that protocol. Okay, it's a very specific protocol. Well, in the case of Nadav and Avihu, they didn't go into the Holy of Holies, right? Let's just check that, confirm. Oops. So that was Leviticus 10. skim it in the English just to go through real quickly. And right, so it says before the Lord. Whatever that means. Well, we don't really know. Does before the Lord mean, again, in that holy of holy areas? Was that their sin? Well, actually, I think that's worth checking out. I want to see again what maybe some of the commentaries might have to say about that. If they also think that that's specifically what it means. Let's go up a little bit here. I wonder if any of the commentaries pick up on this before the Lord. One second here. Okay, so alien fire. Okay. So this is what Robert Alter says about the phrase before the Lord. This is in Leviticus chapter 10, verse 2, right? Right here. So fire came out from the presence of the Lord, or really from before the Lord. Okay. And let's see what he has to say. Oops, there you go. Okay. This is the same phrase used in 924 to report the act of divine acceptance by which a supernatural flame consumes the offerings on the altar. The zone of the holy where the divine presence takes up its headquarters is intrinsically dangerous and, from a certain point of view, radically ambiguous. When proper procedures are followed, a virtual obsession of these priestly writers. Miraculous signs of God's favor are manifested when procedures are violated. God becomes a consuming fire. Okay, well, it doesn't really answer the question that we were looking for there. Let me just quit WhatsApp here because someone's messaging me and it's not at the right time. Yeah, so it doesn't really say what that means before the Lord. Let's look at, well, Rashi's useless, but let's look at Ibn Ezra. So this is Leviticus 10:2. It's very hard to navigate these things. So we are looking at, oh, no, this is just the Tanakh itself. Prophets, blah, 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 blah. Where do we go? Wait, let's do it this way. Hold on a second. So now we're back here. I'll just go up 13. There should be a way to just go quickly back up to 10, but there's not. Okay, I'll just scroll up. 13, 12. So this is the Ibn Ezra whose commentary I like overall. Okay. Oh boy. No, there's got to be an easy way here. Hold on a second. There's got to be an easier way. Ibn Ezra, Leviticus chapter 10, verse 2. So no, there's no comment here on on that phrase before the Lord. There is. Okay. Okay. So Ibn Ezra points out what we were saying before. Yamutu lifnei Hashem ki hashvu ya'asu davar ratzui lefanav. Even though they thought, okay, ya'asu davar ratzui lefanav, that they were doing something desirable before him, right? So they thought they were doing the right thing. They were doing the wrong thing, right? Don't add and take away. Lo tosifu lo tigra'u. Don't add or don't take away from the law, right? Hu asher diber Yahweh, Kfar Amar Li Hashem Shehu Yarek Dushato. So, okay, so this is already going on to a different topic. Okay, so he doesn't pick up on anything there. I guess we could check Rashi for 1 second. Tanakh, Leviticus. No, this is not what I wanted. Rashi, who's usually useless. Leviticus chapter 10, verse 2. So there's no comment about what we're specifically speaking about here. Okay, so we'll just leave it at that. Okay, so what does it mean from before the Lord? Does it mean that they entered into the Holy of Holies with their incense? I don't know. Maybe if we had more time, we could explore it a little bit more. But it's possible, right? Because that would explain. So what's the relevance? Why are we even checking this out, right? The reason we're checking this out is because if we go back to Leviticus 16, it's referencing the death of Nadav and Avihu, right? From Leviticus 10. But now it's giving us the laws of how to enter into the Holy of Holies, right? It's giving us the laws of how to enter into the area where the Ark of the Covenant is. So that seems to imply that perhaps Nadav and Avihu came with their incense, right, with their mahvat, their fire censers, into the Holy of Holy areas. Now it's bugging me. Now I want to check it out a little bit more. Let me just see one more thing. Let me close this off. I just want to see if any of the commentaries pick up on this at all. Maybe it would be in Leviticus 16. All right, let's see. Let's do it this way. So it's 16:2, we said. Okay. B'karvatam nifnei Yahweh. Let's just see here. So it's in Leviticus 16:1. I'm wondering if any of these commentaries that happen in or that show up in this site. So it's a commentary on Leviticus 16:1. Okay, the Day of Atonement. Oh boy, I think it's in general maybe just for 16. No, 16:1. Okay, so here is Kyle and Deitch biblical commentary on the Old Testament. Never heard of them before in my life. But let's see if they have anything interesting to say. So it says the chronological link connecting the following law with the death of sons of Aaron, Leviticus 10:1-5, was intended not only to point out the historical event which led to the appointment of the Day of Atonement, but also to show the importance and holiness attached to an entrance into the inmost sanctuary of God, the death of Aaron's sons as punishment for willfully drawing near before Jehovah. Jehovah was to be a solemn warning to Aaron himself, not to come at all times into the holy place within the veil, before the mercy seat upon the ark, into the most holy place, but only at the time to be appointed by Jehovah, and for the purposes instituted by him, according to Leviticus 16:29, only once a year on the Day of Atonement, and only in the manner prescribed in Leviticus 16:3, which we'll speak about now. For I will appear in the cloud above the kaporet, the cloud in which Jehovah appeared above the kaporet between the cherubim, Exodus 25:22, was not the cloud of the incense, with which Aaron was to cover the kaporet upon on entering, Leviticus 6:13, as etc. And others follow the Sadducees in supposing, but the cloud of the divine glory, in which Jehovah manifested his essential presence in the most holy place above the Ark of the Covenant. Because Jehovah appeared in this cloud, not only could no unclean and sinful man go before the kaporet, i.e. approach the holiness of the all-holy God, but even the anointed and sanctified high priest, if he went before it at his own pleasure or without the expiatory blood of sacrifice, would expose himself to certain death. The reason for this prohibition is to be found in the fact that the holiness communicated to the priest did not cancel the sin of his nature, but only covered it over for the performance of his official duties, and so long as the law which produced only the knowledge of sin, etc., etc. Very good commentary. I like this. Okay, this is good. I think again, what this commentary is applying, although it doesn't say it explicitly, is yes, that this would imply that Nadav and Avihu, when they brought in their incense in Leviticus 10, that what they did is they brought it into the Holy of Holies. Let me just skim again through Leviticus 10. I'll just do it in the English to make it go a little bit quicker and see if there's any indication of that. So fire came out from before the presence of the Lord and consumed them, and they died before the Lord. So those who approach me, who come close to me, one second here. One second. So then it really goes on to other things, okay? Then it goes on to kashrut in chapter 11. So we could say that Leviticus 10 does imply it. There are a couple of phrases that might imply it, right? So this phrase before the Lord, okay, in Hebrew, lifnei Yahweh. And then it says in the presence of the Lord here, and consume them. And then it speaks about those who approach me. So there's the word those who approach me, and in the Hebrew that's okay. So that's Leviticus 10:3. So in Leviticus 10:3, it says, I'll just highlight it. I want to try to highlight it more so people know which verse I'm talking about when they're watching on the screen. בקרובי Kadesh ועל פני כל העם אכבד וידום אהרון. So I think we once studied this, and I think the opinion of some of the commentaries was Bikrovai just refers to the priests. So okay, I'm going to leave it as undetermined, but I'm going to say that there's an implication that this is what it means in Leviticus 10, that they actually entered with their fire offering, right? And one second here, they offered unauthorized fire. One second here. One second. Okay, I'm just going to leave it at that and say that it does seem by context to imply that they offered this fire, this unauthorized fire in the Holy of Holies, because otherwise, why would it reference, okay, the death of Nadav and Avihu once again, and then give rules for when one can and cannot, or how one can and cannot enter the Holy of Holies? So yeah, I would say there's a strong implication there. Although if we had more time, we could, check it out in more detail. But I'm going to say there's a strong implication there that is what the Torah is speaking about. Okay. Any questions? Any comments so far? Anybody want to make a comment or ask a question? Okay. 1 second. There are some comments here. So Ariel and Ben say we also see the idea of walking into a nuclear chamber. You have to follow the protocol. That's a great analogy, right? You better follow protocol when you go to a place that that has such power, right? Any place where there's danger and power, right, or where there's power, basically, you better be careful how you approach it, or else you may just unleash the power in a way that you didn't intend, right? Yahweh is shown to be high energy. Moshe had a glow that people could not tolerate when he came down from the mountain. Right? Again, that God is that Yahweh represents this high level of power. Okay, good comments. So let's move on though. So now we're going to get all kinds of instructions about how one is actually allowed to go, how and when one is actually allowed to go, and who is allowed to go into the Holy of Holies. Okay. Verse 3, V'zot yavo Aaron el Kodesh. Again, let me try to highlight the verses when I'm speaking about them. So, B'zot yavo Aron el HaKodesh bepar ben bakar l'chatat u'ayil le'olah. So he has to come with a, we're not calling it a sin offering. We are calling it a, what are we calling it again? A rectification? I can't remember now. A rectification offering, an atonement from sin, hold on a second, purification from sin. I think we're calling it a purification from sin offering. Wait, where did I put it? I have it on my list. I think. 1 second. I think I had it on my list and then I took it off my list. All right, we'll call it a purification. No, I can't remember. Okay, we'll call it a purification from sin offering. I think that's what we're calling it, right? Anyway, the purification from sin offering or for purification offering and a burnt offering. Okay, so he has to come with 2 sacrifices. Okay, Ketonet Bad Kodesh Yilbash. So he has to wear the tunic. So linen tunic and Michnasei Bad Yu Al Besaro. And so Michnasei Bad are they translate it usually as okay, so trousers. So linen tunic and linen trousers shall be on his body. Avnet Bad, and an avnet is usually translated as a sash. Okay, a linen sash. Yachkor ubemitznefet bad. Itznov bigdei kodesh hem urachatz b'mayim et basaro ulevesham. So I think this is speaking about. So we have a tunic. We have these trousers, linen trousers, and we have the sash, linen sash, and the mitznefet is the turban. So linen turban. So this is not all of the garments of the priest, right? Remember in Exodus we spoke about the garments of the priest. And let's see if we can find a nice picture of the garments of the priest. I think this was the one we were using before. Okay. One second here. Okay, good enough. So, right. So it doesn't say anything about him wearing the Choshen Mishpat, the breastplate of judgment. It doesn't say anything about wearing the ephod. This would be the ephod here. The breastplate of judgment is attached to the priest with the attached to the ephod, I should say. So this is the ephod. So it just really speaks about, I guess, the linen breeches undergarment. I think it mentions that back in Exodus. Let me just look for 1 second. Oops. So in Exodus 28:42. One second here. Right. Okay. So here it is, the Michnasei Bad. Okay. So that is part of the high priest's garments. But he's not wearing all of the garments, right? Again, it doesn't mention, for instance, where were we? Right? It doesn't mention, let's say, it doesn't mention the ephod, the Choshen Mishpat. It mentions the mitznefet, but it doesn't mention the tzitz. This is that gold plate. So it looks like he's wearing most of the, shall we say, undergarments. Okay. but not those overgarments. I think we'll find out. Let's see. Okay, at any rate, let's go on here. Ketonet bad kodesh yirbash u'michnasei bad yu al besaro ve'avneit bad yakor ve'tznaf bad yitznof bigdei kodeshem chatz b'mayim et besaro ve'sham. So then he has to wash himself in water and wash them. Okay, he has to wash these garments. Okay, so it looks like he's wearing most of the undergarments, but not those overgarments. Okay. ומאת עדת בני ישראל ייקח שני שערי עזים לחטאת ועיל אחד לעולה. So now he has to come again, or he has to bring again sacrifices. So we have a seirei izim. So again we have a purification from sin offering, and we have another burnt offering. Okay, just 1 second here. Right, so these are different from the offerings mentioned in verse 3. Okay, verse 6. Vayikriv Aaron et parah hatat asher lo v'chiper ba'ado ba'ad beito. So now he sacrifices the purification from the purification offering mentioned back in verse 3. חיפר בעדו ועד ביתו ולקח את שני השעירים והעמיד אותם לפני יהוה פתח אוהל מועד. One second here. So here now we have the shnei seirei izim. Okay. So now he takes. So there are two sets of sacrifices again. It's par ben bakar. So this is basically a bull, and ayil, a ram, and now we have also seirei izim. Seirei izim. Let's go to our list on the different animal names or animal terms. Okay. So we have seir. Okay. So that's a baby male or female goat. And then we have izim. So we have an aiz. So an aiz is specifically a female goat. So seirei izim means a baby female goat, right? If we put the two together. Seirei izim, so a baby female goat. So you take two of those. Right? These two baby female goats. And by the way, I wanted to add one more thing to this list here. Where was it? Do I have it, Pod? Yeah, we added it here, but we didn't. I added the word, but I didn't finish it off. So let's just do this right now. So actually, I can replace this. So this is now in Leviticus. So par ben bakar. So this is Leviticus 15:3. So let me just replace that instead of using that reference, Leviticus 3. And we were looking up the word par. So let's look that up again. Leviticus 15:3. Par. Right. So this is a young bull. Okay. So I assume it means a male bull, right? Specifically, because it's not para, it's a par. In modern Hebrew and biblical Hebrew, I guess a para is a cow. Okay. So young bull or a steer, and then we were looking up the word steer, which I don't even know what it means. So let's maybe just look up steer again. Then we ran into a problem when we were looking up steer. So I'm just going to leave it as a young bull. So it looks like it's talking about a male, right? So let's go back here. So par is a what do we say? So young bull. Really, it means bull. And using my nomenclature here, it's a baby or a young bull. Okay. So it's a bull baby. It's a male. Age is young. And it's from bakar, right? Par ben bakar. So it's from the herd. So just 1 second here. Let's just change this a little bit. So really just bulls, cows. I'll call this. Okay. So this is from the herd. Okay. So that's what we're talking about, a young male bull, right? A young male bull, meaning what we would call maybe in just modern parlance, a male cow, a bull, right? It's a young bull, it's a baby bull. The word steer, I just want to get an exact definition for the word steer, okay? Define steer. More definitions. No, type of steer, no. No. Steer. Okay, that's a steer. Another term for bullock. What steer means? Let's go with bullock, young, neutered male cattle primarily raised for beef. The male is first a bull calf, and if left intact, becomes a bull. Castrated becomes a steer, and about 2 or 3 years grows to an ox. Really? I'm confused. What is steer? I'm going to leave out steer because I don't think that's what it's talking about here. I don't think it's talking about anything being castrated because we know, in fact, that sacrifices, at the very least, sacrifices are not to be castrated. That's an explicit mitzvah in the Torah. So I think it's just talking about a baby bull. Okay, forget the word steer. So we're going to leave it at that. Okay. So what are we talking about here? We go back here. So a young bull. That's all it says. A young bull. Steer may have different meanings. I think I don't think steer might always mean what it said there. Okay, so let's leave it at that. We're talking about a young bull, and the implication or the proof is it says par ben bakar. Okay, so ben bakar literally means a young bull, son of a of the herd, right? Of one of the herd. Okay, so so the word ben here implies that it's young. Okay, all right. Lachatat laolah. Anyway, let's go back to where we were here. Okay, and let me just stop and ask: are there any questions or comments so far? If anybody has any questions or comments, please feel free to ask them. A steer is a castrated bull. How can it be allowed for sacrifice? Exactly. Thank you, Wolfgang A. Barreto. You are 100% correct. So that's the problem is, and the reason that I'm doing this spreadsheet is because not only is it difficult to keep track of what all of the words mean in Hebrew, right? There's so many of them. Here we have Egel, Bakar, Ayl, Seir, Ez, Keves, Shor, Ben Yonah, Tor, Se, Kifsa, etc. But it's not for me. I didn't grow up a rancher or a shepherd. I kind of wish I grew up as a shepherd, but I didn't. I don't even know what some of these words mean in English. And so this is the reason for doing this little spreadsheet here. So I think you're 100% right. Just as Wolfgang pointed out, there's a mitzvah in the Torah explicitly not that a castrated animal cannot be brought as a sacrifice. Okay. And so it wouldn't make any sense. So I agree with you 100%. Okay. Alrighty. So where were we? We are to take these two si'rim. So now we're going to get to the Lazazel, okay? We're going to take these two Se'irim. Once again, Se'irim. Se'ir is very specifically, it's a baby kid. Okay, I'm sorry, it's a baby goat or a kid, okay? So that's what a Se'ir is. You take these two Se'irim, but then it also says, wait 1 second. Then up here we saw it. It said, where was it? Shnei Seirei Izim. So an Aiz is very specifically a female goat, right? So are these two female goats? So an Aiz is a female goat, according at least to the BDB. Okay, a she goat. Okay. So 2 baby female goats, as it looks like what we're talking about here. So you take them, at the opening of the tent of meeting, or before the opening of the tent of meeting. Again, what does that mean? Let's find our tabernacle picture. This is the tent of meeting, okay? And so the opening of the tent of meeting would be right here. This is going to be the opening of the tent of the meeting. Okay, so right in this area here. Okay. Alrighty. One second. Yeah. Okay, so verse 9 with Natan. Oops, I want to highlight again. Highlight all 3 of these. Natan Aharon al shnei hasirim goralot. Okay, goralot is, we know what a goral is. It's a how do you say in English again? A lot, right? In fact, it says in the book of Esther, the word Purim. Okay, it explicitly says that the word Pur, where we get the word Purim, is the goral, is the lot. Okay, so the word Purim is exactly the same idea. That would be the Persian word for goral. Okay, so in fact, maybe we should even look at that for 1 second. So that's going to be in Esther. Ooh, back here. The NIV. No, let's do it this way. That. I just want to find that one phrase. One second here. Did we skip Esther? There it is, Esther. Purhu Hagoral. So here we go. Esther chapter 3, verse 7. And it's explaining, just read the English first, right? So in Esther chapter 3, verse 7, in the 12th year of King Xerxes, in the first month, the month of Nisan, the poor, that is the lot, was cast in the presence of Haman to select a day in the month. This is the day in the month that the armies of Haman are to attack the Jews, right? But let's look at that in the Hebrew. So this is Esther 3, 7. And what it says is, Achrei Devarim ha'ela no. That's 3:1. So 3:7. בחודש הראשון הוא חודש ניסן, בשנת 12, highlight, למלך אחשוורוש הפיל פור. So they made a lottery, or what's the word again we're using in English? I can't remember the word in English, but a lottery, right? And it says it's called they hipila pur. They made a lottery. Hu hagoral. Okay, so it's defining pur as goral. This is exactly the same word we see here in Leviticus. Okay, so pur is the same as goral, and a goral is a oh god, what's the word we're using again in English? A lot. Okay, had azazel. Okay. So goral ahad Yahweh, goral ahad Azazel. So one is going to be given to Yahweh, and the other is going to be to Azazel. Is going to be sent out into the desert. We'll talk about that more in just a second. Vayikriv Aaron et Asir asher alav goral Yahweh v'asahu chatat. So the one who got chosen for Yahweh is sacrificed. Okay. והשעיר אשר עלה עליו הגורל לעזאזל יעמוד חי לפני יהוה ולכפר עליו ולשלח אותו לעזאזל המדברה. Okay, and the one who who got the lot to go to Azazel, it remains, it's a she, right? Okay, Ya'mod Hai. Just 1 second. 1 second here. Just want to check one thing. Just 1 second. So I have a feeling this actually might be wrong. 1 second here. Goat. Anything else that's a goat? I'm not sure this means specifically female goat. I think it means perhaps any goat, but I'm just going to leave it like that for now. Okay. At any rate, so we're talking about 2 baby goats. Okay, so one is left alive, and it's going to go to Azazel. Okay. All right. So what does the word Azazel mean in modern Hebrew? If you want to tell someone to go to hell, you say Lech el Azazel. That's the modern meaning of the word. Nobody really knows what the word means. Okay. Let's see what the BDB says. Entire removal. From remove. Proper name of spirit hunting desert. Okay, so let's see. I bet there's even a Wikipedia article on it. So let's look at this word Azazel and see what it might mean. Okay, in the Bible, the name Azazel is in association with the scapegoat rite. Okay, the name represents a desolate place where a scapegoat bearing the sins of the Jews during Yom Kippur was sent. During the end of the Second Temple period, it's his association as a fallen angel. Forget all that. Blah 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 blah. In the Torah, in the Hebrew Bible, the term is used 3 times in Leviticus 16, where 2 male goats. So here it does say male goats. So I'm going to go ahead and change this. Actually, I think A is. I don't know why it says in the BDB that A specifically means a female goat, but I don't think that is correct. I think A just means a goat in general. I don't know why it says female goat. So I'm just going to change this to goat. And I'll make a notation. See the notation there. I think of the context in other places we've seen that A is in general just means a goat. I really don't know why the BDB says female goat. I'll have to look that up later. All right. So at any rate, we're looking at this word Azazel. All I know is my grandfather, my mother always used to tell me that my grandfather, my mother's father, had a parakeet, which he trained to say, Lech Azazel, go to hell. So this is before I was born, so I never met the parakeet, but I don't know. That's a story I remember hearing many times growing up. Okay, so so where are we? Yeah, so one goat is selected by Lot, sent to the wilderness, Azazel. This goat was then cast out into the desert as part of Yom Kippur. The scapegoat ritual can be traced back to 24th century BC Elba, from where it spread through the ancient Near East. Okay, whatever. In older versions, such as King James Version, the phrase Azazel is translated as a scapegoat. However, in most modern English Bible translations, it is represented as a name in the text. And it just quotes it in English. Braita. I'll forget all this. So this is Braita is a basically a Talmudic statement from Mishnaic times. Az El, forget all that. Jacinius, who was an expert in biblical Hebrew grammatician, also thought the term referred to the object and amended the name to Azalzel, utter removal. Interesting. Theoretically, the name of demon. However, neither this demon nor the root azal are attested. Ez also generally means goat, and azal means to be gone, used up or exhausted, and the contraction could simply mean the goat that is expended. So that's interesting, right? That is a good point to make that I actually never realized before, that within the word azazel we have the word ez, right? So ez, let's see if I can just point out the ez part. Oh, no, I don't think I can. I can't do it. But if you see these two letters here, is okay. So we see that this sa'ir, okay. So it's a sa'ire izim. Ez is just this word we amended right here to mean a goat, right? So the word ez is within the word azazel, and I actually never realized that before, but here we are. Ez is in with azazel. So they're saying ez means the goat, and azal means to go away. Okay, even in modern Hebrew, if you want to say, "Oh, I ran out of, I don't know, potato chips," you could say azlua chips or azlua chipsim. So even in modern Hebrew, when you say azal, it means to go away or to end, right? And so azazel, so he's saying that it means the goat goes away, which is exactly what the goat is doing. All right, let's see what other ideas we have. So we want to go. Let's check what Robert Alter might have to say about it. I assume he's just going to just give different opinions of what different commentators say it might mean, because nobody really knows what it means, and that's the bottom line. Let's try to move ahead a little bit more quickly here. 950. Oops, gotta go more than that. 999. Did that do it? No, that's too far. 975. Chapter 17, so pretty close. Okay, Sacred Zone, the cover, tone. Okay, as countless seals and other ancient inscriptions unearthed by archaeologists attest, the use of a proper name or title prefixed by the letter lamed as a lamed of possession was a standard form for indicating that the object in question belonged to a so and so, as in lamelech. These words then in the Hebrew each is a single word, the Yahweh and la Azazel, okay, are the actual texts written on the two lots. Much ink since late antiquity has been spilled over the identity of Azazel. Exactly what I thought he was going to say. So he's basically saying nobody really knows. That's his fancy way of saying nobody knows. But the most plausible understanding is a very old one, is that it is the name of a goatish demon or deity associated with the remote wilderness. The name appears to reflect Ez goat. Okay, so that's our answer. We don't know. And that's the answer I like to give when we don't know. We could sit and speculate until the cows come home, but it is clear, right, that, oops, that's Esther. Let's get rid of Esther, that the word Azazel contains the letters for Ez. And I actually never realized that before. So that's a revelation to me. So I'm assuming that either it's a play on words, or that it has something specifically to do with a goat, or maybe it's a place name, or we don't know. All we do know is that in modern Hebrew, if you tell someone Lech Azazel, you're telling them to go to hell. So maybe that's the only important thing we can get out of this this verse here, because that will be useful if you're ever in Israel. There are a lot of people you're going to want to tell to Lech Azazel, believe me. Okay, so so that's that. All right, so let's move on here, and we're going to get back to that goat that's going to Azazel. The other one is sacrificed. Verse 11, ויקריב אהרון את פר החטאת אשר לו וכיפר בעדו ועד ביתו ושחט את פר החטאת אשר לו. Things that are not really relevant. So, okay, he sacrifices this, sacrifices that. We could sit here and figure out the meaning of it, but I'm going to kind of brush through that because there's so much else to cover. לקח ממנו המחטאת גחלי אש מעל המזבח מלפני יהוה ומלוא חפניו קטורת סמים דקה והביא מבית לפרוכת. So this actually is, I would say, quite relevant. So now he's going to take he's going to fill his censer. Okay, so again, we're talking about the proper way to go into this Holy of Holy areas, right? So now it seems to be becoming more and more clear that the sin of Nadav and Avihu was that they actually did go into the Holy of Holy areas. Because here it's now talking about bringing fire, right, into the Holy of Holy areas. Okay, and this is verse 12. Okay, so so you're going to fill up a fire censer with basically with coals from the altar, right? So the altar again is outside in the courtyard. Okay, that's the altar right here. Okay, and you're going to fill. You're going to take coals from this fire, put it in your fire censer. Censer, censer. It's like a pan. And then a handful of, a handful, or maybe a double handful, okay, Hafanim, so that's in the plural, so a double handful, right, like a scoop with your two hands of ketoret samim, of the incense, and that's the special incense, the recipe that we spoke about back in Exodus, whatever. And okay, daka just means basically pulverized, like a ground very finely, right, fine ground incense. And bring it inside mibet la parochet, and bring it inside the parochet. Remember, is the veil. Again, if we go back to our little diagram here, okay, this is the parochet here. The parochet separates between the holy, the kadosh, and the holy of holies, the kadosh kadoshim. And inside the holy of holies is now where we're talking about. Okay, so all of these sacrifices have to be done. The incense has to be brought in with flames off of, with coals that have been taken off the altar, and the ritual of the goat that's going to Azazel, and the other one being sacrificed, has to be carried out. This is the way you're allowed to enter into the Holy of Holies. Okay. ונתן את הקטורת על האש לפני יהוה, כיסה ענן הקטורת את הכפורת אשר על העדות ולא ימות. Okay, so now what's going on here? You have these coals, you put the incense on top of it. Remember, it's 2 handfuls of incense, so it's a lot of incense, and this is now going to make a cloud. Okay. So this cloud that's coming up from the incense altar is going to cover over the cover of the cover of the ark, right? Where's our cover of the ark? From the whatchamacall? I close the cover of the ark. Where's our ark cover? Well, you can always get another ark cover on the internet. They're a dime a dozen. Or Indiana Jones ark cover. What happened to it? Okay, there we go. IndianaJones.fandom.com. Close enough. Let's get another one. Get the stupid Indiana Jones. Okay, let's try this one. There we go. That's a nicer one. That's our ark cover from thegoodseed.com. Doesn't sound too promising, but okay, let's do it anyway. All right. Come on, Good Seed, don't fail me now. Good Seed certainly is taking its time. Okay. Forget the Good Seed. Good enough here. We don't need to go there. Okay, we'll just leave the Google image here. Maybe make it a little bit larger. No. Okay, so there we go. There's our ark cover. Okay, so right in between the cherubim, the wings of the cherubim where they touch, this is where God's presence dwells. So now when the high priest goes in there, he's going to have the incense burning. The incense is going to make a cloud. Okay, we're in this verse right here. So it's going to cover this. The cloud is going to enshroud the cover of the ark, right? So it's like you're not looking at God directly. Okay. You can't even look at the presence of God directly, or the place where His presence looks. Remember that Moshe asks to see God's glory, and God answered. Yahweh answered, "Lo yireni adam chai, a man shall not see me and live." Right? Which I actually interpret as a man is not able to see me while he's alive. But at any rate, a man shall not see me and live. Right? Lo yireni adam chai. Okay. So you're not supposed to. It's like looking into the sun, right? If you're not even supposed to look directly into the sun, imagine looking directly into the presence of God, right? I mean, that's infinitely more powerful than the sun. Ariella and Ben were talking more earlier in their comments about the power, right? You don't enter into a nuclear power plant, right? You're not going to enter into the core of the nuclear power plant, right? The nuclear core where the energies, where the radioactive rods are producing the energy, right, without a specific protocol. Okay, the same thing here, and even more so, you're not going to look directly into this powerful essence, this representation, the closest thing that Yahweh has to a physical presence on this earth. Although it is not a physical presence, it's very clear in the Torah that it says that his presence dwells in that place, but it doesn't say anything about that presence having a physical entity. It's located in a physical place, but it itself is not a physical entity. It's kind of like the place on earth where his presence or his power emanates from. Let's put it that way. Okay, so right, so this cloud has to cover the kaporet so that you can't look right at that place where God's presence is located. And and so now he's going to take from the this is going to be the one of the sacrifices mentioned earlier, the bull sacrifice, par ben bakar. Okay, so this is going to be the baby bull sacrifice, which we said is not a steer. Okay, and the blood from the sacrifice is going to be sprinkled onto the ark cover, which I always thought, I don't get the sprinkling of blood, honestly, on things that like the ark cover or so on the kaporet here we're sprinkling, the Cohen is sprinkling on the ark cover. There's also places where it's sprinkled on the parochet, on the veil. I mean, you're going to have blood stains all over your beautiful veil. I never really got that, but we do know the blood atones, and God's the boss. That's the way He wants it, so that's the way it's going to be. If you ask me, if I were God, maybe in my next life I will be, but right now I'm not. No, I'm joking. I don't think I will be in the next life either. But I wouldn't ruin that beautiful ark cover by having blood splattered all over it. But I'm just a mere mortal, so what do I know? At any rate, so that blood is supposed to be sprinkled with his finger, right, like this, onto the ark cover, kedma. So that means onto the east side of the ark cover. Lifnei kaporet izah sheva pamim min hadam be'etzba'o. Okay. And also before, so it's on the east side of the ark cover and also in front of the ark cover. Okay, so that's that. Okay, verse 15. asher la'am v'chayvi et damo el mibeit la'parochet v'asa et damo kasher asa ledam hapar. So here we go. So this is the se'ir chatat. So this is one of the two. Remember, we have the two goats, and one is sacrificed as we're not calling it a sin offering. We keep on saying that we're calling it a purification offering, right? So one is sacrificed as a purification from sin offering, and this is the one that's being spoken about here, and the other one is sent out into Azazel, out into the desert. Okay. So this other one, now you're taking its blood and you're also sprinkling it pretty much in the same place. Okay. So also bringing it, bringing it inside that veil, right? Inside the veil that separates between the holy and the holy of holies. And you do the same thing. You're going to sprinkle it onto the ala kaporet, sprinkle it 7 times on the east side of the ark cover and 7 times in front of the ark cover. So what is the east side of the ark cover? Again, just to give a kind of picture of what's going on here. So where do we go? Okay, so once again, this is west, right? If you're looking in from here towards the ark, you're facing west. Okay, this is east. Okay, and as if you remember the video that I shot from visiting the replica of the ark of the tabernacle in Timna Park, just north of Eilat, the guy there who is excellent, absolutely excellent, pointed out that generally gods were worshipped towards the east. If you want to worship your pagan god, you would face towards the east, towards the rising sun. Okay, Yahweh was worshipped towards the west. Okay, and he pointed out that he believes that this is a polemic to say that God is not the sun. Right? The pagans worship they worship facing the east as if they're worshiping the sun, or if they're worshiping the sun or a god that represents the sun, they're going to face the rising sun because that's when it's growing in strength. Our God, we don't want to we don't confuse with the sun. We don't syncretize him with the sun, and so therefore we're going to be facing away from the sun when we worship him, not towards the sun. Okay, so this is west. If you're standing here and facing towards God's presence, you're facing west. So if it's going to be on the east side of the Ark of the Covenant, then that's going to be right here. That's going to be this side of the Ark of the Covenant. It's basically going to be when you walk into the Holy of Holies, then you are going to be, I don't know if you can see that cursor moving on the screen, I hope so. You're going to be you're going to be facing you're going to be facing the east side of the Ark of the Covenant. So it's basically the part of the ark that's facing you when you walk into the Holy of Holies, okay? And then also in front of the ark, okay? Which I guess would mean on the floor in front of the ark. Okay. So that's that. Alrighty. So where were we? Where were we? Right. Okay. We were in verse 15. So now we're in verse 16. So verse 16, וכיפר על הקודש מטומאת בני ישראל ומפשעיהם לכל חטאתם, לכן יעשה לאוהל מועד השוכן איתם בתוך תאומתם. So this is an interesting phrase. So it says, by doing so, right, or this act, what does it do? What does it do? It atones for the holy area. Okay, mitumaot bnei Israel, from the impurities of the children of Israel. ומפשעיהם לכל חטאתם, לכן יעשה לאוהל מועד השוכן איתם בתוך טומאתם. So this seems to imply that what we're really talking about here is an atonement, not. Well, let's be careful with our words. וכיפר על הקודש מטומאת בני ישראל ומפשעיהם. Yeah, וכיפר על הקודש. Okay, this atones for the holy place. Okay, so it's not the children of Israel that are being atoned basically for. I mean, they're being atoned for because they're the ones who defiled the holy place. But really, this is a purification or an atonement ritual for the sanctuary. And what does that mean, right? Maybe by mistake or maybe on purpose, the sanctuary has been defiled, right? If you go to the sanctuary in a state of impurity, okay, if you bring things that you're not supposed to bring, an animal that's not permitted, or an animal that's blemished, or an animal that's sick, if you do things not following protocol, these are all ways that you can impurify, or you can defile. That's the word I'm looking for. You can defile the tabernacle. You can defile the tent of the meeting, Okay, so this is a ritual which basically atones for the defilement of the tabernacle. That's basically what Yom Kippurim is. Now, if we look at this verse carefully, let's just pick it apart. Okay, it says "Wachiper ala kodesh." So this is talking about the priest, and so he will. I'll translate it as so he will, and he atones for the holy place, okay, for the holy things or for the holy place, Okay? Mitu'ma'ot b'nei Israel, from the impurities of the children of Israel. Okay? Umi pish'aehem. Okay? So pish'aehem is a general term for transgressions, but it seems here that it's speaking about the transgressions in impurifying, again, either by mistake or by carelessness or maybe even on purpose, by impurifying the tabernacle, the tent of meeting. The chol chatotam. Okay, but here it says mi pishem nachol chatotam. So maybe it's in general. Okay. No, not really. Yeah. So I think that this is really speaking about so this is really the focus here is not atonement of sin for the children of Israel. It's atonement for the holy places, for the tent of meeting. Okay. The tent of meeting, the Ohel Moed, and the Kodesh, the holy area and the holy of holy areas, right? From the impurity that the children of Israel may have inadvertently, carelessly, or purposely placed on to it during the year. That's really the implication here. And again, I want to look at some of the commentaries and see what they have to say about this. Okay, so let's go to our boy Robert Alter and see what he has to say. Let's just read a little bit of his comments here. Okay. Okay, irrelevant right now. To send it off to Azazel in the wilderness, approximate analogs to the so-called scapegoat ritual using different animals appear in several different Mesopotamian texts. The origins of the practice are surely in an archaic idea that the polluting substance generated by the transgressions of the people is physically carried away by the goat. Azazel is not represented as a competing deity or demon rivaling Yahweh, but the ritual depends upon a polarity between Yahweh, the pale of human civilization, and Azazel, the remote wilderness, the realm of disorder and raw formlessness. An unapologetic reading might make out the trace of a mythological plot, even if it is no more than vestigial in this monotheistic context. It is as though the goat piled with impurities were being sent back to the primordial realm of welter and waste before the delineated world came into being, but that realm here is given an animal or demon tag. The early rabbis, extending the momentum of the ritual, imagined the goat as being pushed off a high cliff, but in our text, it is merely sent out or set free in the wild wilderness that is the realm of Azazel. Right. So I always learned it growing up that the goat was pushed off a cliff, but it doesn't say that anywhere in the Tanakh. That's completely rabbinical. Okay. This is a good point. Since one hand holds the fire pan, this is an indication. So it's a double handful, right? Melokaf nav, right? This is an indication of dry measure rather than direction, that each of the priest's two hands should be filled with incense. Okay, that's a nice point. So here, this is really what we want. Okay. So this clause is the conceptual heart of the entire atonement ritual. Exactly. During the year, I always like when this guy agrees with me. I agree with this. A lot of respect for him. So when I know we're thinking along the same lines, I like it. During the year, the accumulated sins and transgressions and physical pathologies and inadvertencies of the Israelites have built up a kind of smog of pollution that threatens the sanctity of the tent of meeting and the holy of holies within it, by implication for later times the sanctity of the temple. This elaborate rite of purgation scrubs everything clean of impurity, making the sacred zone cultically viable for another year. Again, evidence abounds of annual rites for cleansing the temple in Mesopotamian culture that may well have served as precedent for what we have here. Later Jewish tradition would transform this ritual for the purgation of a physical miasma. What the heck is a miasma? He's an academic and he likes to use academic words, of pollution into a process of spiritual repentance and atonement. I have to look up miasma. Is that what happens when you have problems breathing? Is that you have miasma? Sorry, that's a bad joke. Okay, define miasma. unpleasant or unhealthy smell or vapor, a miasma of stale alcohol hung around him. Hung around who? Okay, well, now we know what a miasma is. So if you're planning to be taking the SATs in the next year, keep that in mind. Okay, so well, I think what Robert Alter is saying is okay. I'm going to read this again because I want to pick up on a specific point that he's saying, which I kind of might agree with or might not. But this clause is the conceptual heart of the entire atonement ritual that I wholeheartedly agree with. Right? This is the whole idea here. Right? It's a cleansing, Yom Kippurim, and we're going to find out that this is occurring only on Yom Kippurim. Okay. Yom Kippurim is really about cleansing the tabernacle. It's really about the cleansing of the tabernacle. That's its central idea. Okay. So, where were we? Back here, Robert Alter. During the year, the accumulated sins and transgressions and physical pathologies and inadvertencies of the Israelites have built up a kind of smog of pollution that threatens the sanctity of the tent of meeting and the holy of holies within it. So I think if I were to read between the lines of what he's saying here, he's not saying that it's specifically talking about Israelites that have inadvertently impurified the tabernacle, but that the sins, all of the sins, speaking, speaking about people behind their back, or adultery, or eating impure foods. Well, that's already purity and impurity, so maybe I shouldn't use that example. Or stealing, or whatever the case may be, has somehow resulted in the pollution of the tabernacle, the tent of meeting, and the holy of holies. Okay, and why is he saying that? Well, if you saw, I was also questioning whether it's speaking about impurity or sins of the Israelites regarding inadvertently, neglectfully, or deliberately impurifying the tabernacle, or whether it's talking about sins in general. And he seems to be saying his response is, and I respect his response, so he might be right, and I'll tell you why I think he might be right, is he seems to be understanding it as speaking about sins in general, that the general sins of Israel throughout the year have resulted in somehow, the tabernacle dwelling among these impure Israelites, and now that it's the tabernacle that has to be atoned for. So why does he say that? He says that because of the language here, okay? If it had just said, "V'chiper ala kodesh mitum'at b'nei Yisrael," and that was the end of the sentence, then I would say it's specifically speaking about the Israelites impurifying the tabernacle through, again, carelessness, neglect, and perhaps deliberately, right? Let's say, bringing a sick animal as a sacrifice, right? But it also says, so we have this phrase, right? So from their, including their, I don't know how to translate this, to crimes and their sins, right? So it seems to be speaking in a more general terms, that the crimes and sins of Israel, okay, have impurified the tabernacle, and at least that seems to be the tack that Robert Alter is taking. That's why he says that. It's because of this phrase here, okay? Let's keep an eye on that, and let's see if that is what it's talking about. I don't know. I don't have the answer. It's something I've thought about, always wondered, but let's see. Maybe we could pick up on it as we go through it this time. Something else. Maybe let's look at a couple of other commentaries and see what we can glean from there. Let me close these off, close that. So we are in Leviticus. I specifically want this verse 16:16. Well, that's an easy one to remember. So let's grab some of the commentaries on Leviticus. Oops, no, get back here. New tab. Let's grab some of the commentaries on Leviticus 16:16 and see what they have to say. Do they think that it's speaking about is the essence the purification of the tabernacle, or is it the purification, or is the atonement of sins for Israel? I would say that the essence is the purification of the tabernacle, right? And secondarily, maybe it's the atonement of sins for Israel. Okay, or maybe by atoning for the sins of Israel by Yom Kippurim, and we're going to see in just a bit that this is specifically happening on the 10th day of the seventh month. That by atoning for the by allowing or by providing a day whereby Israel can atone for his sins, the tabernacle itself is cleansed also through this ritual and also through the fact that Israel is atoning for its sins. So therefore, the tabernacle is not dwelling among these impure sinning Israelites. Okay, well, not just Israelites, impure sinning human beings. We all sin, as King Solomon says. There's not a man who does not sin. Okay, but it provides a way for us to atone for those sins. So therefore, the tabernacle does not have to be dwelling perpetually, or it just gets our sins just get us dirtier and dirtier and dirtier and dirtier until the tabernacle just can't take it, right? So the idea is that the tabernacle should be sitting among a pure nation or a purified, not sinning nation, and this allows us, by atoning for ourselves once a year, and by this specific ritual where the Holy of Holies, or where the tabernacle is atoned for explicitly, right? The bringing in of the incense and the cloud covering the ark cover, and the sprinkling of the blood on the east side of the ark and on the floor before the ark, right? All of these things allow the tabernacle ultimately to be cleansed, okay, and allow the tabernacle to be dwelling among a nation that has been cleansed, so it just doesn't get dirtier and dirtier and dirtier and just can't take it anymore. Okay, so we are in 1616. I'm curious to see what some of these other commentaries, most of which I've never heard of in my entire life, but some of them are really good, I have to say. Some of them are a lot better. They're better than Rashi, that's for darn sure. As anyone who listens to my studies know, I really don't tolerate Rashi very much. But okay, we have some comments here. So somehow the daily forgiveness of sin left something in. Okay, so all right, let's start here. The idea of sins accumulating in the holy and most holy places throughout the year, just like having to wash the sink after the dishes are cleaned. Let me think about this. Wash the sink after the dishes are cleaned. Okay, that's an interesting analogy. So the dirt from the dishes gets onto the sink. As such, the dirt from Israel's sins washes onto the Holy of Holies because, okay, I like that. Wow. Ariel, you should write or I don't know if that was Ben or Ariel, you should write a commentary. That's that's commentary level material there. Somehow the daily forgiveness of sins still left something in the tabernacle. So the daily forgiveness of sins that need to be cleansed. There were two goats. Would one be for the sins and the other for the temple? Oh, that's an interesting idea too. That's an interesting idea. I really like these comments. Okay, I'm going to keep all of this in mind. So the daily forgiveness of sins still left something in the tabernacle. So where is the daily forgiveness of sins? So we do have the daily sacrifices. Are they designed to forgive sins? I don't remember. I guess there must be a chatat brought daily. I'm not going to go back and look it up. That would be, I think we saw that right at the beginning of Leviticus, right? Oh, let me look at it for 1 second. Leviticus, open up a new tab. So that's going to be, oops, I shouldn't do it that way. So at the beginning of Leviticus, where it speaks about the daily sacrifices, I think it's actually Leviticus 1, if I remember correctly. Grain offering. Oh no, this is just in general. So where's the daily offering? Fellowship offering. Right. So these are just general instructions for the different types of offerings. Sin offering. Maybe it was in Actually, it might have been in Exodus. I think it was. Where it mentions it. I don't remember. Okay, I'm not going to chase it down right now, but let's assume that that's the case. That the daily offering includes what we're calling a purification offering. That that makes a lot of sense. Actually, hold on a second. Daily offering. Daily offering in the Bible, Numbers 28. Exodus 29, there's where it must be. Exodus 29. So let's go check that out. Exodus 29. Okay, so every day for all time to come, sacrifice on the altar 2 one-year-old lambs. Sacrifice one of the lambs in the morning and the other in the evening. The first lamb offer 2 pounds, blah, blah, blah. Sacrifice the second lamb in the evening. For all time to come, this burnt offering. So it's a burnt offering. So burnt offering is not a sin offering. A burnt offering is more like a hi God, hi, we're here, we love you, we respect you kind of offering. It's to be offered in my presence, blah, blah. This is where I'll meet my people there. I will meet the people down, make the tent and altar holy, and I'll set Aaron apart. They will know it. Okay. So I don't see anything about a sin offering there, but maybe there are other places where it's mentioned. The daily sacrifice. So Numbers 28 is mentioning a daily sacrifice. Numbers 28, 6. Okay, well, here's a bunch of them. Daily sacrifice, Here's a continual burnt offering. So that's a burnt offering. Exodus 29, that's what we just read. That also is a burnt offering, doubled on Shabbat. Burnt offering. So that's another one at night, and that was also a burnt offering. So this is the burnt offering. So I don't see anything about a sin offering, right? Because we're talking here basically about a hatat, right? The 2 animals that are brought in here in Leviticus 16, and I'll just switch over to the English for a second, right? So we saw that they're the 2 animals that are brought inside and they're sprinkled onto the ark cover. So where is it again? Put the incense, right? Okay, the bull's blood. So this is the bull, right? The bull is spoken about in verse 3, and that's a young bull for a sin offering. So that's specifically in a sin, or again, what we're calling a purification from sin offering. Okay, so it's a hatat, a purification offering. Okay, the second one that's sprinkled there is slaughter the goat for the sin offering, and take its blood behind the curtain to do what it does with the bull's blood. So that also is a sin or a purification from sin offering, right? So here specifically, these are what's generally called sin offerings, what we're calling purification from sin offerings, which are purifying the temple. The daily sacrifice, to be very specific, as far as I can see from the verses we checked out, are not purification from sin offerings. They are olot. They are fire offerings. Okay, fire offering is the type of offering, as we saw in the beginning of Leviticus, where everything is completely consumed on the fire except the blood. The blood is spilled out because the blood never goes on the altar. Okay, and then the entire animal is thrown onto the fire. Okay, and that's kind of more like, as far as I can see it, it's more like your general kind of like showing of honor or respect for the king offering, right? He gets everything. He gets the whole thing. There's nothing left over for you. It's our way of saying we completely sacrifice ourselves for our king, our God. So, Ariella, I will leave it up to you if you want, or even if it's not relevant right now, then forget it. But the daily forgiveness of sins still left something in tabernacle. So what I'm saying is, to be very specific and very technical, I don't see a ritual which is performed for the daily forgiveness of sins, okay? Which is probably why it has to be done once a year. I might be missing something because there's so much material to assimilate and remember and and connect with each other. So, okay, so yeah, it's possible I'm right. Possible I'm wrong. I don't know. When I looked it up now, I don't see it. So I'm gonna say that this idea here is exactly why, since there is no daily forgiveness of sins, this may explain why we have the yearly ritual on Yom Kippurim for the forgiveness of sins, for the cleansing of the tabernacle. Okay. However, this next comment here, yeah, I think this is really potentially interesting. Oh, my battery's about to go dead. I'll have to go get the charger in a second. There were two goats. Would one be for the sins and the other for the temple? I'm going to keep an eye out for this. I don't know what the answer is to this, but I think you're making a good point, right? Because the sins of the people are placed on the head of the goat that sent out to Azazel. So would that represent the cleansing of the sins of the people, right? And the other one is sacrificed as a chatat, as a purification from sin offering, and its blood is sprinkled on the east side of the kaporet, of the ark cover, and before the ark cover. So that might well be the one that's. I think that's a really good idea. I'm going to keep my mind open, or my eye open for this one here. Okay, let me just take a break for 2 seconds while I go grab the charger. I won't even put on any music or anything. I'll just be right back. I just have to get the charger. All right, where are the cats? All right. Oops. This. Okay. Plug this in. And there we go. Okay, so where were we? We were going to look at some commentaries on 1616. So Ellicott's commentary for English readers. Make an atonement for the holy place. The transgressions of the Israelites during the year not only defiled them, but also drew defilement upon the very sanctuary with its utensils, which was pitched in the midst of them. For this purpose, the high priest during the second temple period thoroughly mixed the blood of the bullock with that of the goat and went out. Okay, well, I don't know what they did during the second temple period because that was already controlled by the rabbis. Okay, and so shall he do for the tabernacle of the congregation better, and so shall he do for the tent of meeting. He next cleansed this by the same process the tent of meeting, or the court of the sanctuary where the Israelites were usually admitted. That is, the high priest sprinkled the court and the altar of burnt offering, which was in it 8 times with the mingled blood of the bullock and the goat. So I guess we're going to get to that because we didn't speak about that yet, right? 1 second. I used to do the same for the tent of meeting. Well, I don't see any mixing of but at any rate, okay, but that's a good point, that the tent of meeting, so the Israelites are allowed into the area, at least surrounding the tent of meeting, which is the courtyard. They're allowed there, so they may have brought impurity near the tent, directly near the tent of meeting. All right, let's see another one. Here's Benson commentary. For though the people did not enter into that place, yet their sins entered thither, and would have hindered the effects of the high priest's meditation on their behalf if God had not been reconciled to them. So again, what this Benson commentary is saying is the same thing as the general sins. We're not talking about just sins having to do with impurifying the temple area or the tabernacle area. We're talking about stealing, talking lashon hara, whatever, you know, uh, whatever the different sins that people do. Okay, murdering, maybe especially. So, in the midst of their uncleanliness, in the midst of a sinful people who defile not themselves only, but also God's sanctuary, and God hereby showed them how much their hearts needed to be purified, when even the tabernacle, only by standing in the midst of them, needed this expiation. So, again, this so far, all of the commentaries are basically implying that the general sins of Israel. Okay, so there are two ways to look at this. When it's speaking about in 1616, right? So 1616, let's read that again. Okay. In this way, he will make atonement for the most holy place because of the uncleanliness and rebellion of the Israelites, whatever their sins have been. He is to do the same for the tent of meeting, which is among them in the midst of their uncleanliness. So, are we talking about where it says, because of the uncleanliness, rebellion, and sins of Israel? Is this talking about specifically with impurifying the temple, or is this talking about sinning in general? And all of the commentaries here seem to imply that it's speaking about sinning in general. Well, we had good luck with Kyle and Delitzsch's biblical. I think I have heard of them actually. At any rate, we had good luck with K and D, biblical commentary on the Old Testament. So let's give it a whirl here and see what they have to say on this particular verse. And so shall he do to the tabernacle of the congregation that dwelleth among them, i.e., has its place among them, Joshua 22:19. In the midst of their uncleanliness, the holy things were rendered unclean, not only by the sins of those who touch them, but by the uncleanliness, i.e., the bodily manifestations of the sin of the nation, so that they also required a yearly expiation and cleansing through the expiatory blood of sacrifice. By Ohel Moed, the tabernacle of the congregation, we're to understand the holy place of the tabernacle, to which the name of the whole is applied on account of its occupying the principal space in the dwelling. Hold on a second. Okay. And in distinction from Kodesh, which is used in this chapter to designate the most holy place. Oh, interesting. Okay. So well, I'm not, if you understood, you understood. I'm not going to get into that right now because we'll just go off on a tangent. Or the space at the back of the dwelling. It follows still further from this that by the altar in Leviticus 16:18 and also in Leviticus 16:20 and Leviticus 16:33, which is mentioned here as a third portion of the entire sanctuary, we're to understand the altar of burnt offering in the court and not the altar of incense, as the rabbis and most of the commentators assume. Yeah, I think it's clear. Interesting. Okay. The rabbinical view cannot be sustained either from Exodus 30:10 or from the context. Exodus 30:10 simply prescribes a yearly expiation of the altar of incense on the Day of Atonement, and this is implied in the word "so shall he do" in Leviticus 16:16. These words can only mean that in the same way in which he had expiated the most holy place, he was also to expiate the holy place of the tabernacle. Okay, well, we'll get to that in a bit. So basically, all of the commentators here. Let's read one more. Atonement was now to be made for the tabernacle as a whole. The sense is very briefly expressed, but there seems to be no room for doubt that the high priest was to sprinkle blood on the blood of each of the victims before the altar of incense, as he had done before the mercy seat within the veil, and also to touch with blood the horns of the altar of incense. Okay, we'll get to that in a second. All right, so that's that. Alrighty, I'm gonna go a little bit longer, and then I'm gonna stop. I'll try to get through this chapter. It is kind of getting late here. So that was 1616. One second. Okay. One second here. All right, let's go on to verse 17. וכל אדם לא יהיה באוהל מועד בבואו לכפר בקודש עד צאתו. וכיפר בעדו ובעד ביתו ובעד כל קהל ישראל. So no person is to be within the tent of meeting. So the tent of meeting can mean a lot of different things. I mean, generally, this is the tent of meeting. Here we go. This is specifically the tent of meeting. Okay, this thing here. But sometimes, by extension, it can mean the whole area of the tent of meeting, meaning within the courtyard as well. Because who else would be in the tent of meeting at that time? So maybe it means the courtyard. Regular Israelites were admitted into this area, but they were not to go into the tent of meeting. Only the priests go into the tent of meeting, okay, into this area here, okay? I don't know. And I guess we could look. Oh, let's see. Oh, I wish we had more time. But we don't. So we're going to go on. Okay. V'chol adam lo yeh b'ohel moed. At any rate, whatever the area it's speaking about, no one else should be there while the Kohen goes in and while he goes out. I guess it has to mean the tent itself, because that's what we're talking about. The Kohen going into the tent of meeting, into the actual tent of meeting, right? יצא אל המזבח אשר לפני יהוה, פרע ולקח מדם הפר ומדם השעיר ונתן על קרנות המזבח סביב. ויזע עליו מן הדם באצבעו 7 פעמים ותיארו וקידשו מטומאות בני ישראל. So this is what the two of the commentaries were talking about. ויצא אל המזבח אשר לפני יהוה. So the rabbis, I guess, seem to understand this as meaning so it says mizbeach, it says altar, but there are two altars, right? There is this is the incense altar, and this is the sacrificial altar, right? This is the altar of burnt offerings, okay? So I think the rabbis think it means the incense altar, but that commentary we read before was clearly saying that that's not a viable interpretation, that it means the altar of burnt offerings. And perhaps actually we can even look at let's look at that again. Just that thing here. It follows still further from this that by the altar in Leviticus 16:18 and also in Leviticus 16:20 and 16:33, which is mentioned here as the third portion of the entire sanctuary, we are to understand that the altar of burnt offering in the court and not the altar of incense is the rabbis, this is the rabbins. And most of the commentators assume the rabbinical view cannot be sustained either from Exodus 30:10 or from the context. Exodus 30:10 simply prescribes a yearly expiation of the altar of incense on the Day of Atonement, and this is implied in the words, so shall he do in Leviticus 16:16. Second. כיפר על הקודש מטומאות בני ישראל ומפשעיהם לכל חטאותם וכן יעשה לאוהל מועד שוכן איתם בתוך טומאתם. Right, so this is, yep, he's making a very good point. I think we're going to go down too much of a rabbit hole if we get into it right now, but he's saying that this phrase, v'chein yaseh, and so shall he do, to the Ohel Moed is referring to the purification ritual of this area here, the holy area, okay, which there he's now referencing back to Exodus 30:10, which speaks about, I'll just bring it up for a second. Once a year, Aaron shall make atonement on its horns. Okay, this annual atonement must be made with the blood of the atoning sin offering for the generations to come, is most holy to the Lord. And this is referring specifically to the incense altar. Okay, so it's all the incense altar. And then it says so this is rules about the incense altar, okay, from here down to here. And then it says once a year, Aaron shall make atonement on its horns. So the rabbis are saying that where it says here in Leviticus 16:18, יצא אל המזבח אשר לפני יהוה, כיפר עליו ולקח מדם הפר, that this is referring to the incense altar as referenced from Exodus 30:10. And this commentary here, and I think rightfully so, is saying no, that that's not what it's referring to. That when it says in Leviticus 16:18, that it's not referring to the incense altar, it's referring to the sacrificial altar, right? That's referring to, where'd we go? It's referring to this altar here. And the commentator is trying to point out why that must be the case. And the reason he's saying that it's the case is because it's already speaking about the purification in the incense altar in verse 17, where it says, where is it? I'm sorry, in verse 16, where it says, "V'chein ya'aseh la'ohel moed," and so shall he do, meaning atone, for the ohel moed, which is the place where the incense altar is. And so therefore, when it says in verse 18, when it's speaking about the altar, it can't be speaking about the incense altar because verse 17 already spoke about the incense altar, and therefore it must be speaking, excuse me, about the altar of sacrifice, right? The burnt altar. I'm sorry, the altar of burnt sacrifice. Okay. So we can read that again. The rabbinical view cannot be sustained either from Exodus 30:10 or from the context. Exodus 30:10 simply prescribes a yearly expiation of the altar of incense on the Day of Atonement, and this is implied in the word "so shall he do" in Leviticus 16:16. For these words can only mean that in the same way in which he had expiated the most holy place, he was also to expiate the holy place of the tabernacle, in which the altar of incense took the place of the Ark of the Covenant of the most holy place, so that the expiation was performed by his putting blood in the first place upon the horns of the altar and then sprinkling it 7 times upon the ground in front of it. The expression "go out" in Leviticus 16:18 refers not to his going out of the most holy place into the holy place, but to his going out of the Ohel Moed, or holy place, into the court. So I agree with that 100%. Okay, let's move on a little bit. So we just read this. So that's talking about the purification again, taking now this blood from the sin offerings and sprinkling it on the sacrificial altar out in the courtyard. Okay, verse 20, Leviticus 16, verse 20. Now we get back to the scapegoat. We'll try to finish this chapter and then I'm going to end the study. So at the latest, if we're not done with this in 15 minutes, I'm going to end the study anyway. Okay? And here again, it's clear in 20. It's so clear. Okay? That what this commentator is saying is correct. And I think he actually alludes to verse 20. Oops, where'd we go? Right? And also in Leviticus 20. So here clearly, what does it say? And he finished atoning for the holy area, which in this case is referring to the Holy of Holies, with Ol Moed, the tent of meeting, which in this place is referring to the holy area where the incense altar is, and the altar. So again, we're moving from in to out. Holy of Holies, holy, and out in the courtyard where the sacrificial altar is. We kriv et the and so he sacrifices the living goat. And now I'm confused. What living goat are we talking about? I thought that goat was already sacrificed. One second here. One second. One second. ייקח 2 שעירי עזים לחטאת והלכה לעולה והקריב אהרון את פר החטאת אשר לו ויחבר בהם. אוקיי. קח את 2 השעירים והעמיד אותם ונתן אהרון והקריב אהרון את השעיר אשר עליו הגורל ליהוה ועשה חטאת. השעיר אשר עליו הגורל לעזאזל יעמוד חי לפני יהוה ולכפר עליו לשלח אותו לעזאזל המדברה, הקריב אהרון את פר החטאת אשר לו וכיפר בעדו ובעד ביתו ושחט את פר החטאת אשר לו, כך מלוא המחתה גחלי אש מאל המזבח מלב יהוה ומלוא חפניו קטורת צלמים דקה והביא מבית לפרוכת ונתן את קטורת על האש לפני יהוה וכיסה ענן. Okay, so we can skip that part. פר אשר החטאת ולא ימות, כך מדם הפר והיזה באצבעו על פני הכפורת קדמה ולפני כפורת היזה 7 פעמים דם באצבעו ושחט את עיר החטאת. Okay, I guess it is speaking about that I thought it had already been sacrificed, but it doesn't say explicitly earlier that it was sacrificed. It just used the word hikriv, which means bring close. But here's the actual slaughtering of that one goat. Remember the 2 goats, one is going out into the desert, La Azazel, and the other one is being sacrificed as a sin offering to Yahweh. Okay. שחט את שעיר החטאת אשר לעם הביא את דמו אל מבית לפרוכת ועשה את דמו כאשר עשה לדם הפר. Oh, right. Okay. Okay, so here okay, one second. One second. Okay. My mistake. Hold on a second. No, it is clear. Okay, it's very clear. Okay, so this is now slaughtering that goat that had gotten the lot that says it is given to Yahweh. Okay, right. So this is now talking about the Lazazel one. Okay, I'm sorry. Ikriv, my problem was that in modern Hebrew, the word lakriv means really to sacrifice, like actually slaughtered. But really, in biblical Hebrew, hikriv means just to bring it close, from the word karov, which means to bring close. So it is goat that's now going to be sent out into the desert. Okay, so my mistake. Okay, not really mistake, but my misunderstanding. Okay. וכילה מכפר את הקודש ואת אוהל מועד ואת המזבח והקריב את השעיר החי. So the Kohen is now finished purifying the Holy of Holies, the holy area, and the altar of sacrifice. And now he brings close the living goat. This is the one that's going to go out into the desert. With Samach Aaron et shtei yadao al rosh ha'seir. And so Aaron places both of his hands on the head of this living goat, Hasir Chai. And he confesses upon it all of the sins of the children of Israel. So all of the sins are now being transferred onto this scapegoat, right? And why is it called a scapegoat, or where do we even get the word scape from? Well, scape means, well, what does scape exactly mean? Know what a landscape is. Okay, find scapegoat. Let's get etymology for scapegoat. So what is escape? Mid-16th century, from archaic escape plus goat. So it's the goat that escapes. That is a scapegoat, because this goat escapes out into the desert, right? So that's what a scapegoat is, and that's what escape is. Let's define scape. Let's give it a whirl. Oh, that's something else. Scape scene, the pattern of a landscape. Okay. So it has nothing to do with the word scape in landscape. What's the etymology here? Whoa. What happened there? Weird. Landscape. To scape minus scape on the pattern of a landscape. I don't even know what that means. Okay. Dictionary. Definition of escape. Some innocents escape not the thunderbolt. William Shakespeare. Interesting. This is completely different. I don't know if it has any connection to, well, this is escape, a flower stalk, and this is like a cityscape. I don't know what the etymology of that is, but okay, let's look this up just for the heck of it. So that's from the Tragedy of Antony and Cleopatra. Some innocents escape not the thunderbolt. Okay, well, now we know what a scapegoat is. It's a goat that escapes. It's not a goat that is sent out to a landscape. It's escape. It's an escape goat. That's what it means. Okay, I never knew that. I always thought it had to do with sending it out into a landscape, and I actually thought scape maybe meant like a cliff or a desert or something like that. So escape is an scapegoat. So maybe from now on I'll call it an scapegoat. Okay. So here we are. So he confesses all the sins. The sins are, by doing so, while his hands are on the head of this scapegoat. Okay. The sins are transferred symbolically to this scapegoat. Okay. Avonot b'neser v'kol pish'ehem v'kol chatotam. And so here we have again avonot, pish'ehem, chatotam. Avonot is usually translated as iniquities. Pish'ehem is usually translated as transgressions, and chatotam is usually translated as sins. So it does seem to be speaking in general again about all of the sins, all of the different types of sins, stealing and murder and whatever, all the various sins that human beings commit. And he places them on the head of the goat. And he sends it in. He sends it at the hands of a slow person out into the desert. No, that is not slow. I was just kind of making a joke. Slow in modern Hebrew, is et, but it would be with an aleph and a taf, not with an ayin and a tet. And I'm sorry, it would be an aleph and a tet, not with an ayin and a taf. So biad ish et hamidbara. So what is et? So I think actually Robert Alter gave his explanation. So he translated it as a man for the hour. The Hebrew ish et is a celebrated crux. Crux is his way of saying nobody knows what it means, and probably nobody does. Expression appears only here. The literal sense is a timely man, and it probably indicates a man chosen to serve for this task and time. Okay, so that's 21. Let's see what Ibn Ezra has to say, just for the heck of it. Leviticus, where are we? 16, right? Oh boy, how do we get different? This is really not a good system, the way they did it. Ibn Ezra. Oh, we went too far. No, we didn't. What happened here? Oh, Tanakh, prophets. Wait a second. What did I do here? Stuff from the beginning. There we go. Ibn Ezra. Okay. So we're in Leviticus, and this is 16. And what verse are we in again? So we want to look up this word et in 1621, right? That's our goal here. So chapter 16, 21. There we go. Et. Mizuman la'ito. O minhago lalechet bechol et v'kiburim. V'hayom. I'm not sure what this is. Second. V'hayod להתייחס לעת כמו פנימי, והמפרשים אותו חכם איננו נכון בעיני חז"ל, אמרו שהנושא הוא הכהן ודבריהם אמת. אוקיי, מזומן לאיתו או מנהגו ללכת בכל עת בכיפורים, okay, so this is what he's saying. מזומן לאיתו או מנהגו ללכת בכל עת בכיפורים. So he's ready or prepared here. Let's read this. Appointed means prepared for his time. מזומן לאיתו, okay? Or iti, or minhago lelechet b'chol et b'kippurim, or an individual's custom it was to always lead the goat on the day of atonement. So basically, Ibn Ezra is kind of saying what Robert Alter is saying, right? That it's a person who is prepared or is performing this particular act at this time, and it's related to the word et, which means time, timely man, right? Again, Robert Alter translates it as, what did we see? Man for the hour. I think it's a good translation. Okay, but again, it's a difficult thing. It's a difficult phrase to translate. Nobody really knows. Okay, v'shilach biyad ish it. Okay, amidbara. Verse 22. Sa'asir alav et kol avonotam el eretz gizera v'shilach et hasir bamidbar. So an uninhabited land. One second. Right. So gizero. So I guess the implication of the word gizera. So ligzor means to cut off or to fence off, right? So gzera is a fence. So I guess the idea is gazar, a solitary they translate it as, but I guess it means a cut off or fenced off or an area that's, not inhabited. It's fenced off from civilization kind of thing. Okay. Shalachat tas'ira midbar. Okay, verse 23. ובא אהרון אל אוהל מועד ופשט את בגדי הבד אשר לבש בבואו אל הקודש והניחם שם. So now after Aaron okay, so now Aaron the Kohen has finished the ceremony. The goat has been sent out into the desert. Now he takes off. Remember, he's wearing special clothing. He was wearing the avnet, the mechnasei bad, the ketonet bad, and the mitznefet. He's wearing the trousers, linen tunic, a linen sash, and the linen turban. That's it. He doesn't have the rest of his, right? It speaks about a bunch of other things like the ma'il, whatchamacall? What do you call it again? I can't remember it now, right? But you have the choshen mishpat, you have the ma'il, you have the tzitz, you had a whole bunch of other things that the Kohen Gadol usually wears, but he wasn't. He was only wearing, according to what we saw above, only 4 things at this point. Not what am I thinking of? I can't remember now. At any rate, so he's now removes these clothing, okay, and leaves them there. ורחץ את בשרו במים במקום קודש ולבש את בגדיו ויצא ועשה את עולתו ואת עולת העם וכיפר בעדו ועד העם. And now he goes out, so he washes the clothes and he washes himself, and he goes out and now brings burnt offerings. ואת חלב חטאת יקטיר המזבחה. ואת חלב החטאת יקטיר מזבחה, and he takes, remember they slaughtered the sin offerings. Now he takes the fats, right? There are certain fats, the chelev, which are listed earlier in Leviticus, right? The fat around the kidney, etc. I think Ariella was speaking about that today on the WhatsApp group, right? These various, what are called the forbidden fats, only go on the altar. We're not allowed to consume them ever, okay? Whether it's a sacrifice or not, the fats belong, the blood is spilled on the floor, the fats belong to God only, or at least they're not allowed to be consumed by us. And we can eat the rest of the animal. Okay, so the chavo el machane. So then the one who sent the goat out into the desert, he also has to wash himself and his clothes. And then those two sin offerings, one was a baby bull, and the other was a baby goat. They're brought outside of the camp, and their remains are burnt. And whoever performs this also has to, again, wash himself in his clothing. And we'll go through the rest of this, and then we're going to stop. Verse 29, so on the 10th day of the 7th month, okay? One second. One second. So really, okay, so it never mentions before anything about this being on the 10th day of the 7th month. But okay, it would seem, just want to make another point here. One second. Let me just look one second. One thing up. So we know it's mentioned in Leviticus 23. One second.
Where's Lavi?
Lavi, I guess, is outside. I don't know. One second. I think those are the only two places it's mentioned in the Tanakh. Leviticus 23 and, I'm sorry, Leviticus 23 and Leviticus 16. No, there must be another place. Deuteronomy, Leviticus 23, Leviticus 16. I think it's mentioned again in Deuteronomy. I can't remember right now. It doesn't matter. Those are the two main places, okay? So if we go back here, can we assume that it's referring that this is all taking place on the 7th day of the, on the 10th day of the 7th month, or is this now talking about something else? I assume it has to be, because it wouldn't make sense otherwise, because we wouldn't have a date and a day for when these rituals have to be performed. But I wonder if, again, if someone else picks up on it. No? So this close this off. Whatever to close off. Comment. Let me just see one thing, and then I'll tell you exactly what I'm thinking if it's not clear. Leviticus 16:29. One second here. One second.
I'll let me know when they come.
Okay.
Oh, you're done?
No, I'm not. Another 5 or 10 minutes. 1 second here. Okay, I mean, one could claim that this paragraph here see one thing here. Well, here's a samech. And here's a ptucha. Here's a pei. So at least according to the Masoretic text, it's not starting a new chapter. So this is related to what we saw before. Okay. My only point here is that one could claim that this is speaking about a completely different thing, right? Because why doesn't it mention up at the beginning of the chapter, which also would be kind of a new chapter in the text, because here we have a pei, which represents a pasha ptucha, basically the end of a chapter marking, right? So why wouldn't it mention up here the 10th day of the 7th month? Why does it only mention it down here? Is this something different from this? Does this occur on another day? But I can't think, because I can't think of how that would be possible, because there's no specific day mentioned for any of this stuff until we get down here. So I guess the implication would be that, yes, this is all taking place on the 7th day of the 10th month. But let's go ahead and it was just a thought that popped into my mind, which I wanted to just chase after. But okay. So on the 10th day of the 7th month, okay, afflict your souls, which generally is understood as fasting. If you look on Karaite Insights on my website, the article I did on Yom Kippurim explains why this does seem to indeed mean fasting, using proofs from the Tanakh. And you should not do any work. And notice here, when we read last week or the week before about Passover, it's Melechet Avodah. When it's speaking about the Chagim, it says Melechet Avodah, but only for Shabbat and for Yom Kippurim does it say Milacha. It's kind of like more terse, no work. Okay, it's clear. Lo tasu ezrach lager gar b'tochachem. And we saw also that on the first day of Chag HaMatzot, it says explicitly no work, don't do any Melechet Avodah, don't any types of work, except for that which is necessary for preparing food. And here there's, so here it's clearly that's not the case, all right? So that implies that the level of refraining from work is lighter on the rest of the Chagim and most serious on Shabbat and Yom Kippurim. In fact, as we'll see here, Yom Kippurim is called a Shabbat, okay? There are only 3 things in the Torah that are called Shabbat. One is the weekly Shabbat. The second is Yom Kippurim. And the third is the 7th agricultural year in which the land lies fallow. Okay. Okay. כי ביום הזה יכפר עליכם לטהר אתכם מכל חטאותיכם לפני יהוה תטהרו. Okay, because on this day, basically, it will be atoned for. Your sins, all of your sins will be atoned for. Shabbat Shabbaton hi lechem v'chinitem et nafshotechem chukat olam. Okay, so again, Shabbat Shabbaton. Okay, it is a solemn day of rest. One could say there's a repetition here. Shabbat Shabbaton. When you have a repetition, it always is in biblical Hebrew that implies emphasis. Okay, so the emphasis here is that it's Shabbat Shabbaton. It's a very serious day of rest. Sometimes they translate here as a solemn day of rest. Okay, again, afflict your souls or fast katulam. אשר ימשך אותו ואשר ימלא איב ולבש את בגדי הבד בגדי הקודש. So this is just saying that this is the Kohen from generation to generation. Whoever has been appointed the head Kohen, again, will perform all these rituals. Okay, so again, this seems to be, now it's bringing in the Kohen performing these rituals, so this seems to be hearkening back to what we saw earlier, and this paragraph is all clearly referring the 10th day of the 7th month, so it does seem to, again, back up the idea that all of this is referring to the 10th day of the 7th month. Okay, וכיפר את מקדש הקודש ואת אוהל מועד ואת המזבח. Again, we have 3 things mentioned. The מקדש הקודש, okay, that's the Holy of Holies. the Ohel Moed, that's going to be the holy area, okay? And then the Mizbeach, that's going to be out in the courtyard where the altar of sacrifice is. Yechaper ve'al kohanim ve'al kol am ha'kahal yechaper, okay? And he shall also atone for the other kohanim, the other priests, and for all of the congregation. Atah zot lechem lechukat olam lechaper al bnei Israel mikol chatotam achat b'shana v'ya'as kasher tziwa Yahweh et Moshe, okay? So this is now an eternal statute to atone for the children of Israel, and specifically atone for the children of Israel because their sins impurify the tabernacle, right? That's why the atonement of the children of Israel is intimately associated with the atonement of. Well, can you please stop with all the noise? Okay, is intimately tied with the atonement of the tabernacle, and maybe one could even claim that really the whole purpose is to atone for the tabernacle. That by atoning for the children of Israel, the tabernacle does not have to dwell among an impure people, right? Among a sinning people, and therefore that the real implication here is that the tabernacle should be where God lives. Should not be sitting among a sinning and impure people. That this entire purification ritual is really designed to allow for the sanctity and the cleanliness and the purification of the tabernacle. But that's the emphasis here, not the purification or not the atonement of the people of Israel, but the atonement of the tabernacle, God's house where He dwells, so that He doesn't have to dwell among a sinful and spiritually filthy people. Really, that seems to be the emphasis here, right? And so Moshe did as God commanded, right? So we like to think, and the rabbis who have destroyed the temple, right? They went out of their way to, despite all their claims, to make sure the second temple was destroyed. And then it seems that they switched the meaning of the holiday of Yom Kippurim over to us. It's all about us. We're receiving atonement. We're receiving expiation. Our sins are being cleansed. Us. Are we being written in the book of life or the book of death and all of this stuff? But it's not about us, right? Here, the emphasis in Leviticus 16 is about the tabernacle. We're almost secondary to the purification of the tabernacle, right? God is living in the tabernacle. He lives between the cherubim on the ark cover, and that's his house, it's his palace. Imagine if you had, what would be an analogy? Imagine if you had a palace of a king and it was in a slum, right? It was in like some favela in Rio de Janeiro or something like that, right? That wouldn't be very honorable to the palace, right? The palace should be in the most exclusive part of town. It should be surrounded by nice, clean buildings and all this kind of stuff. If you went through a slum and then came to the palace, that would be disrespectful for the palace. And so, but the focus there would be on the palace. And I think, hold on a second, excuse me for 1 second. Just throw the cat out. I'm sorry, he has to go out because he's on the table. Goodbye, Lovey. No, gotta go. No, it's gotta go. Out. Okay. So the emphasis is on here, the palace of God, right? The place where God lives, right? That's the emphasis, that we have to be clean because it is disgusting. It's not honorable for God to have to live among a filthy people, right? An unclean, a sinning, a people who's become filthy, spiritually filthy through their sins. Okay, so that seems to be the focus here. The can you please put him in the garage or something and just leave me alone now, please. Okay, so so that focus again is on God and His house and His palace, not on us. But the rabbis changed it all about us. We're receiving atonement. We're receiving expiation. Us. But here, clearly, the focus is on God. The focus is on the palace of God, on the tabernacle, and keeping it clean. And we're kept clean, or we're given atonement, so that the tabernacle can attain atonement and live among a clean people. So that's all I have to say about Leviticus chapter 16. Is there anyone who would like to make a comment or like to ask a question? Anybody? Okay, if not, then I suppose we're going to end the study for today. I thank you all for joining us. Wish you all a Shabbat Shalom and a Shavua Tov, wherever you, depending on where you are in the world. And we'll see you again, Bizrat Yahweh or Yahuwah. We're still deciding between the two names. But I've explained in the group why I'm switching over from Yahuwah to Yahweh. So, Bizrat Yud Hey Wow Hey. We will see you all again next week. Shabbat Shalom, Shavua Tov.